Yeah. Yeah. Getting kind of a quote unquote audit done and like taking a look at things and looking at your corporate governance to figure out what needs to be cleaned up, reviewing contracts to see what needs to be tightened up, et cetera. Doesn't have to be a heavy undertaking. It can be, anywhere from a few to several hours, right? Over a couple of weeks, right? The Where the rubber meets the road is what comes out of that audit. So let me just use like a simple example, right? Uh, if you are an HVAC company that is selling monthly recurring revenue, right, like maintenance plans or something like that, and you've got 900 customers on an annual maintenance plan for $399, and the terms of that the terms of that agreement, the recurring revenue agreement for that annual contract, don't allow for assignment. Well, that's a big problem. That means you have 900 contracts that you have to go get consent to assign at closing. That said, it's an easy fix. You can swap out that assignment language that says, hey, in the event of a sale of all or substantially all of the assets, we could freely assign this contract to a new buyer. Well, that's all good and fine, but you don't want, again, to go out to 900 customers right now and say, hey, by the way, we're revising our terms of service. So you want to get ahead of that at least a year in advance so that if you're looking at an exit in early 2027, I can look at all of your agreements today, identify this issue, work with you to update the terms of service, and deploy that internally to replace your old agreement for every renewal going forward for the next year. So that 12 months from now, in December of 2026, every annual recurring contract has now been replaced and has that assignment language. So when I go to market the business in January of 2027, boom, no problem. I could do an asset deal. All 900 customers are freely assignable and no problem. So the audit really isn't the concern. It can be, a couple of thousand to, maybe the low teens to like really dig in the weeds and really unpack your business and things like that. Then from there, what we discover, may or may not incur additional fees and may or may not have some longer lead time. But all that's to say, if you spend a year figuring out what those things are, implementing changes, cleaning things up, it costs you $10,000 to $20,000 just to make up a number or whatever. And this allows you, when you go to market in January 2027, to get a tenth of a turn of EBITDA extra because your business is just that much more attractive. A tenth of a turn of EBITDA on $1 million, you just made yourself $100,000 by doing a little legwork up front with kind of minimal legal investment. So it I don't want to be too salesy here, but it can be a little intimidating to want to spend that money that early on when you're preparing to sell. But the knock on effects when you actually go to market your business can be exponential.
Well, and that's why I'm so excited about the intensive, because we got 10 weeks, and each week, each person, and we're going to ask you what you're going to present on here in just a second. But each week, just the information that they're going to get is going to be potentially, it's up to them. They have to go do it, or follow up and do the work. But it's so much value because this is a high stakes game. This is, you mentioned turns of EBITDA, and so some advice they're going to get might increase their multiple by a whole turn, right? So it might be
Yep.
a tenth of a turn. And so, all this stuff goes from, if we go back to what we said a minute ago, what do you want to get on day of closing? Well, if you're worried about that earnout potential, but you went from 5 million on day of closing to 6 million on day of closing, and the earnout still is whatever it is, that's
Yep.
$1 million. That
Yep.
is $1 million, or 500,000, or 2 million. There's a lot of little things. Like I have one customer right now, and customer concentration is killing their value, but they're
Yeah.
ready to exit. And so it's like, okay, well, they're going to take a lot. They're going to take a haircut because of that, a severe
Yep.
haircut. And so that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, in this game, this is not a game of, $2.99 monthly subscription. Like, this is a game
Yep.
where hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars are on the line. So, what will you be talking about on your week, and what could people expect?
Yeah, I've hinted at a few already, but yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about basically what are all the red flags that a buyer is going to see in your business is kind of the approach I'm going to take. We're going to talk about governance. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't appreciate what they have to be doing for some of the protections and liability protections and things like that for your business. So how can you audit that and get on top of that? what to look for in customer and vendor contracts as a potential seller, so that you can start to get savvy about what should I be updating in advance of a marketed sale. Intellectual property, I think a highly underrated category for small business owners, where you can really make your business more attractive with some really basic intellectual property protections. How many sellers listening to this video right here have never even thought about exploring a trademark for your business? And could that be valuable on exit, to know that, you know, you have some brand equity and that brand equity is protected by a trademark? That could be really easy, low hanging fruit. So we'll talk about intellectual property protections, not just trademarks, but other things that you could do to increase the attractiveness of your business. The employment side of things, you know, what are our kind of best practices in employment, in employment, that you can be thinking about adopting, and rolling out again, to make, not just the business more attractive to a buyer, but also limit the risk of a buyer. I'll tell you, representing hundreds of buyers over the last several years in this small business space, their number one concern is not that a seller's defrauding them, is not getting sued by a former customer. It's closing their business and losing a key technician or salesperson 3 weeks after closing. That is the by far the number one concern of buyers. And so, what are some things you can look at doing and adopting, and kind of taking care of internally, whether that's restrictive covenants or incentive type things, to try and alleviate those concerns, and make your business more attractive as well. But broad base, those are kind of the key categories I'm gonna be looking at, and then we'll probably spend a little bit of time just talking about the transaction process itself, and what to expect, so that sellers can kind of go in armed with a little bit of knowledge, whether that's next month or 2 years from now, of, you know, what are the big ticket items when I'm approaching an M&A transaction that I want to make sure that I protect myself on. So we'll do a little bit of transaction talk as well.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, I am looking forward to it. And hopefully 2025, you are back at number one where you belong. And then
Hoping
2026
so.
and 2027 and so on. And so it's been great to get to know you and the SB Law Group. And so you guys are doing great work. And so excited to have you part of this. And so looking forward to this. And I don't think we've pinned down your date yet, but we will pin that down. And then when this comes out, we will share that with everyone so they know
Sounds great.
when you're talking. Thank you so much for your time today, brother.
Absolutely.